the jury couldn't reach a verdict. Here to discuss that and so much more, the great Batya Ungar Sargon joins us. She's an opinion editor at Newsweek and the author of Bad News, How Woke Media is Undermining Democracy. Batya, good to have you back with us.
It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Vince.
Always, always. All right, so Daniel Penny prevails after he goes through a trial that I believe never should have happened. What do you make of it?
I think this is a really great day for our nation. Very much by the grace of God, this sort of unanimous jury acquittal, I think has a larger lesson in it, which is that this mythology about America, that this is still a racist country, or that we are divided by race, or that we're even divided by political party, is increasingly being revealed as the mythology that it is. I think that's what we saw on November 5th as Donald Trump made massive inroads into Democratic strongholds, into communities of color, working class Black Americans, Black men, Hispanic men, Hispanic men, majority of them choosing Trump. But this is exactly what we're seeing here. You had a jury that had 4 Black members and the rest white. There were a lot of women, a lot of men, and they all managed to come together and say, this man is innocent. The only thing he's guilty of is of being a protector. And Vince, I think that's really what this was about. The verdict was about the unity of this country, of this great nation, but I think the trial more broadly really reflected a larger debate we're having in this country around the concept of masculinity. Is masculinity something that men should be apologizing for, like the way that the left thinks people should apologize for being white? Should men be embarrassed and ashamed of the fact that they want to be providers and protectors? Or should they be proud of those things? Does a functioning society need those things, need men who are proud of being men? I think that's what Daniel Penny came to really represent, was that masculinity stepping in to protect women from danger. And I think what we saw today was a huge vindication that our society needs and wants that.
Right, and if you live, if you're civilized, if your culture is civilized, it's not just something that's optional. It's a duty. It's an obligation. It's a calling. And we've done our solid best to try and suppress that to the point of really penalizing a guy like, in this case, in Daniel Penny. Here's a Marine who reflected a lot in his public statements on his training as a Marine and the obligations that he has to his country and to his fellow man. And yet he's been treated like complete garbage. I worry. I agree with you. I love the outcome here, but I worry that the process itself was punishment enough that it has a chilling effect, a further chilling effect on those people who might be a bystander in a similar situation.
Oh, 100%. Although, they were already slacking off. Let me tell you, Vince, as someone who rides the subway a lot, frequently there will be a Jordan Neely type person, and this is even way before this trial, doing shenanigans, threatening people, scaring women and children, and the men will just sit there and look out the window like it's not happening. And I just sit there and think to myself, you guys, this is what the testosterone is for. God gave you this gift. This is what it's for. Mm-hmm. It's not just there to swim around in your body so you can go to the gym. It's to protect women, and they just do nothing. So chilling, I'm not sure, because I feel that there's been a real dearth of that of late, even before this trial.
Sure.
But certainly after what they saw him go through, I think, you see people tweeting all the time now, I will never in New York lift a finger to help a stranger, and you can't really hold that against them.
Yes. Well, and this gets to social trust too. And there's a cost to all of this diminishing social trust. We could get into a million conversations on this, but one of them is just really basic. If you don't feel like you recognize your community and you don't have a shared value system around you, eventually people become so distrustful of one another that they don't even stand up for people when they're in their moment of need.
100%, and that's what I really resent about the racialization of this by the left and by the BLM activists standing outside the courtroom today. If you look at Jordan Neely and the thing you see as a Black man, you're the racist, because he was not being a Black man. He was being a crazy person threatening women and children. There's nothing about that is Black. That was just crazy and bad. And there's nothing white about what Daniel Penny did. He was a man, a protector in that moment, who said, I'm not going to sit here and let this happen. So I really hate that they do that, that they act like, it's an inherent and important part of the story that Jordan Neely was Black. That's nonsense. He was threatening black women on that train.
Right.
So it's really like the racism is really with them. And honestly, Vince, I just feel like the American people can see that now.
Yeah, for sure. And this is why, I mean, you even see it when, if a black police officer has an interaction with a black suspect, the black police officer is cast as some sort of extension of white supremacy. This is how, by the very same people you're talking about. And so it always conforms into this idea that there needs to be racial conflict when obviously something very different took place, as you point out. Jordan Neely comes onto that train, as all of the eyewitnesses described. He's threatening to kill people. He says he doesn't care if he goes back to prison. And you had one guy stand up, Daniel Penny, and then eventually other men jumped in to hold Jordan Neely down. And that's the story here. And thank goodness the jury recognized it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just have to say, the real villain in this whole story is Jordan Neely's father, a man who locked him out the house when he was 18 because Jordan didn't want to give him the money that he made busking, a man who abandoned him after his mother was murdered, I believe in front of his eyes, and left in a suitcase in his apartment, a man who never had a moment to think about Jordan when he was a child or a young man struggling and living in the streets. I mean, living like a dog in the streets. This father of his, so-called, had nothing in his heart for him. And now he has the audacity to show up and sue Daniel Penny for civil liabilities. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he's trying to look.
This man is just disgusting. It is so repulsive to me. He's literally trying to capitalize off of his son's death when he had nothing for him when he was alive.
His name is Andre Zachary, and he showed up outside the courthouse today. This is what he sounded like.
I just want to say I miss my son. My son didn't have to go through this. I didn't have to go through this either. It hurts. Really, really hurts. What are we going to do, people? What's going to happen to us now? I had enough of this. The system is rigged.
Mm-hmm. The system is rigged. I miss my son, he says.
I mean, it's just so repulsive, like that he is the victim here when he is probably the cause of most of Jordan Neely's problems. Just absolutely repulsive. What they've done to Daniel Penny, I really hope that he's able to come out of this, and I really hope that this civil suit goes nowhere and that he's able to rebuild his life and that he feels vindicated today.
Yeah, and also that he's safe. I mean, because here you have people who really want to scalp and are angry that they didn't get it. Outside of the courthouse today was also a guy called Hawk Newsom, who was a part of an organization, some outgrowth of Black Lives Matter, which, of course, was founded by a bunch of Marxists. And here's Hawk Newsom today saying it's time for black vigilantes to rise up.
Just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
We need black people to kill those who attempt to oppress us. Black vigilantes, he says. One of the silver linings that I'm taking away, and perhaps I'm being too Pollyannish here, is that I do feel like that these kind of calls to insanity don't have the audience that they once did. That people are very skeptical of people like Hawk Newsom and think that he's just nothing but a race hustler.
I could not agree with you more. I feel like he sounds so performative. I feel like even he doesn't believe it. And I think that there's this amazing thing happening where, like, the gap between the reality and the rhetoric is so obvious. The thing, Vince, that we learned from this is like, once again, it's become so clear that the supply of racism in America is failing to meet the demand from, like, the left and the leftist activists. And so they don't have any real victims of racism, so they have to go for people like Jordan Neely, who so obviously was not a victim of racism or really a victim at all. And I just don't think you're going to see, not only, Vince, and this I could be wrong, so I'm staking out a claim here, and you'll know very soon if I'm wrong, but not only do I think you're not going to see mass rioting in the streets, I don't even think you're going to see, like, AOC tweeting about this, or Nancy Pelosi or the whole left, the Democrats who are all suddenly like realizing how far they are from average people on these issues, I think that they're going to be very sheepish about it. And I think even the people who called this a lynching or whatever like a year ago when it happened are going to be very, very circumspect in how they discuss it today.
Well,
That's my prediction.
I hope so. I really hope so. You know, one person who I just checked his account because you brought this up. That's such a good point. Jamie Harrison, who's the head of the DNC right now, he's the outgoing DNC chairman. He has not, to my knowledge, posted about this on social media today, which is interesting. But recently, he was defending the use of identity politics in his party's approach. On Thursday, he gave a speech. And he said, quote, "When I wake up in the morning, when I look in the mirror, when I step out the door, I can't rub this off," he said, gesturing to the color of his skin. "This is who I am. This is how the world perceives me. That is my identity. It is not politics. It is my life. And the people that I need in the party, that I need to stand up for me, have to recognize that. You cannot run away from that," he said. Additionally, he said that he's going to be releasing a book, of course, where he's going to share a bunch of unresolved internal party grievances that he's saving for the book, and he, quote, is going to be naming names. What do you think of this idea that his party should cling to racial politics as a means to move forward, and the infighting that's going on to the point that you have people selling books off of it?
Well, someone who feels that the MAGA movement is sort of the future for the working class, the multiracial working class, I feel very happy when I hear people on the other side talking about an obviously losing proposition. But my better angel who wants the Democratic Party to be good and wants both parties to be their best selves and present compelling alternatives to give the American people real choices when they go to vote, thinks, obviously they got to let this go. But I think that they know that this is a losing proposition. I think you can't look at 25% of black men and 56% of Hispanic men voting for the Republican Party and think like, oh yeah, let's just keep doing what we're doing. Let's just keep leaning into the issues that, white college educated women love. I think that there's a real reckoning happening, and anybody who clings to the other side is going to get left in the dust. And I think that there's a real sense of that with the powers that be. The problem is that the money in the Democratic side is very bound up with the most extremist version of the party, the most extremist policies. And I think that that's very much true on the right as well. But Donald Trump just didn't care. I mean, the way that he won was by sort of giving the middle finger to the elites on his own side. I don't know if you saw what he said to in that Meet the Press interview, but he said that he said to her about Project 2025, he goes, and I said to him, and he goes, you know who he is? I mean, I guess he was talking about Kevin Roberts of Heritage. He said, I said to him, you had no right to do that to me. This is Trump saying on Meet the Press that the Project 2025 folks had no right to insinuate that Trump liked their proposal because it got him in hot water and he had to distance himself from them. There is no Democrat, Vince, who would talk that way about George Soros. There is no Democratic politician who would talk that way about the big money or the elites or the intellectual elites on their side.
Yeah. Well, you know something? I happen to like both Donald Trump and Kevin Roberts sincerely, and I hope they figure out a way to work together in the future. And on that, I do think that the Project 2025 thing was like such a stupid talking point from the left. It obviously carried some weight because they turned it into like a big, ridiculous piece of hyperbole, but for the political season. But having said all that, I understand the point you're making, which is that Trump doesn't feel like he has to suck up to anybody. He'll just call out anybody on either side. And that's a refreshing presentation, in fact, not a pose, to have from anybody who would ask for power as a politician here in the United States. I like that. All right. Hey, Batya Ungar Sargon, thank you very much, as always, for your clarity and wisdom on all things. Really appreciate your time today.